What's up, YouTube? Brian Van Dyne here with Van Dyne Dump Trucking. Just getting back to the yard, getting ready to park the truck. I wanted to just talk to you guys a little bit about, if you're going to start a dump truck business, honestly, in my opinion, the perfect timing. That's kind of what I want to talk to you guys. I want you guys to set yourself up for success, right? I don't want you guys to set yourself up for failure, right? And your business can fail in so many different ways in the dump truck industry. It really is a cutthroat industry, and anybody that's in it will tell you the same thing. If you're going to start a dump truck business, you got to start in the spring to summer. You cannot. If you start in winter, you're asking for the roughest go of your life. That's what you're really asking for. You're asking, to really struggle. I've been in business for going on 8 years now, and I can tell you it is very difficult to find work in the wintertime. Even if you have a customer base, it's, especially in Washington. Other states, are different, but in Washington, it's very difficult, guys. Very difficult. And I want you guys to succeed if you're going to start a business. So I always tell people, try and pay cash for your first dump truck. If you got to buy a smaller dump truck to be able to pay cash for it, then just do that. Enter the industry in the best position that you can enter it, and that's by not over leveraging yourself. That's one of the biggest things to running a business. If you start your business over leveraged, it's going to stress you out and you're not going to be able to sleep. The only way that scenario works is if you're the type of person where you have to be over leveraged to have motivation to work. And if that's the case, then you probably shouldn't be running a business, because the amount of stress that's going to put on you, that's probably going to shorten your life expectancy. I'm just saying, maybe it's good for you, maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But I can tell you right now, being over leveraged is not for the faint of heart, And a lot of guys out there are over leveraged. It is absolutely nuts how many guys start their business by being over leveraged. And what that means is owing so much money and having no equity in your business, or having no cash flow. You know what I mean? When you have, let's just say, for example, you're able to start your business with a brand new truck like this one, this 2024. You go out, you buy a 2024, 2025, whatever. You're going to finance it at probably 10% interest or some crazy number, right? Your payment's going to be around $7,000. Can you make $7,000 a month? If you own one truck, you're going to pay $1,200 a month for insurance. And then you're going to pay a couple grand for fuel. Can you pay all those bills and still make your monthly bills that you have that are not associated with your business? That's what you got to ask yourself. And a lot of guys don't do the math ahead of time. And I've seen it time and time again. And what happens is they go into business, they realize they're not making any money, and then they have to sell the truck for what they owe. A lot of them sell the truck for what they owe. They don't make any money on the sale a lot of times, because they're in a position where it's like, well, if I don't make this amount of money, then I got to go into debt even further with a credit card. And then if I don't sell the truck for this, then I might have to sell something, or I'm going to be upside down if I sell it for this price. I don't know how many times I've seen guys try to sell their... This happens a lot of times when guys are trying to buy a brand new truck and they have an old truck. And what they try and do is they go out and they buy the new truck, and in order to take possession of the new truck, they have to sell their old truck, right? That is a very tough situation to navigate, right? And it doesn't always work out the way you plan it. And so it's just better to not get in that type of situation. You know, why put yourself in that situation? You know, me personally, the way I started my business, right? I bought the old truck, cash. I paid cash for it. I fixed it up. I worked on it every single day. You guys know the story. If you don't, go back, watch the playlist, and see it all, right? Then, what I did was, my goal was to build a house down here in Shelton. And then the bank, they kind of screwed me, right? My goal was, I'll sell my duplex, I'll take that cash, and I'll roll it into the new house, right? I was pre-approved everything. They gave me the letter of pre-approval and everything. And then, after I sold the duplex, luckily I had a contingency plan. You know, I said, look, I'm selling you the duplex, but you're giving me a 1-year lease. And that should be sufficient time for me to get my house built. I'm making $100,000 on the sale of my duplex. That's gonna go immediately into the new construction. I'm gonna have so low debt. That was my idea. And then it ended up not working out, because then they wanted 2 full years of tax returns after they told me a year and a half would have been fine. Then they changed the whole narrative, and they really put me in a really crappy position, right? Because they basically lied to me, you know? Then I was like, okay, well, if that's the situation, I'm just gonna live in a camper, and I'll take this money and I'll roll it into my business. I'm not gonna just have this capital just sitting here doing nothing in a bank losing money, right? Because that's what money in the bank does. It basically loses money. 7% a year. Like, I mean, inflation is around 7%. They say 2-3%, but that is absolutely baloney, you know? Anybody that believes that number is, I don't know, yeah, get your head checked. Inflation is not 2%. Okay, so anyways, back to my story. So I took that money and I rolled it into the Super Dump Peterbilt. Everybody knows that, right? I put, $60,000 down. That got my payment really low, relatively low considering, that truck, $4,000 a month. This truck, $7,000 a month. I didn't pay anything down on this truck, right? So that's a big difference, and because I had no other bills, I wasn't over leveraged, right? I just had my truck payment. The truck's easily bringing in $20,000, 15 to 20 grand a month with fuel, insurance, and then I have my other dump truck that's paid for cash. I got my machines that are paid for cash. Not over leveraged, right? That is kind of the way you want to do your business. Start with something small. If you can't afford a $10,000 dump truck, then buy a smaller dump truck. If it's really your dream and your goal, you will figure out a way to make it work. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to over leverage yourself. And so many people, they think, they're so naive. And just like me, I was very naive too, and honestly, I did put myself in a really crappy position, because my idea is I'm buying this dump truck. It's all on me. I'm going to start my own business. My bad idea was telling my current employer that, hey, I'm going to start my own business. And then, by the time that news had gotten out though, I was well on my way to being successful. You know what I mean? So it didn't necessarily hurt me. It just kind of crammed me into gear. You know what I mean? I didn't have time to push the clutch in all the way and ease it into gear. It was like, grab gears and go, because it was, well, you're fired. And I was like, well, okay, I wasn't planning on quitting, I was planning on working a little more, having a bigger bag for when I started, and then it just ended up just going all downhill, you know, as you guys know, which wasn't really downhill for me. It was, man, I hit the road running and I never looked back, and I'm glad it happened that way. Hindsight 2020, I'm glad it happened that way, because it really put my tail in gear. And it was, if I don't succeed, I'm not eating. My family's not going to eat if I don't succeed, if I don't make this work. It was, I make this succeed, or I got to sell all my stuff to pay my bills and then go find a job and try and build it up again. That's basically what the backup plan was at that point. I didn't have a backup plan because I didn't know my plan was going to get effed. You know? the amount of naivety that I had. I was like, yeah, you know, I'm a star employee. There's no way he's going to fire me. And, you know, I am very confident he probably thought, he's like, I'm going to fire this guy. He's going to lose his crap, and then he's going to come crawling back to me. That was not me. I'm not the guy that's going to work halfway and then say, well, I gave it my best shot even though I didn't really try my best. Let me go crawling back to big rigs and see if I can get a job back. F that. I would rather have died than go back. I would rather have just blew my brains out than go back. There was no going back for me after that. I was done working for people. I'm like, I had worked for people long enough to know it's the same story, different game, every single company I've ever worked for. I work harder than everybody else. I never get compensated for it. I end up pulling everybody, you know, all these other drivers' weight, and then I never get paid for it. And then they make up all these, you know, they tell you one thing, and then they want you to do something else. Oh, Brian, you know, better hustle, better hustle. Hey, don't get no speeding tickets. You know, they tell you one thing, but they want you to do another thing. You know, like when I worked at Snyder. Well, you ran that camera light. If you were overweight, we might have been able to look the other way, but since you ran a camera light, we're going to have to write you up for that one. Wait a second here. I probably ran the light because I was overweight. You told me to do this, and this is what happened, right? I was tired of playing those political games, and they do it at every company, you know? If you want to play games, I'm done with that. I'm starting my own business, you know? And I tried to do the welding thing, and I could not see myself doing that long term, you know? And I could easily see myself driving truck, you know? I don't know, it's in my blood, I guess. I'm a truck driver, you know? It's what I do. So that's kind of where it all went for me. And the rest is history. Now I got a fleet of 4 trucks. I got a big excavator, you know, a nice house, nice truck, 2 nice trucks actually, TRD Pro, and I got my F350 Limited, and I'm living life very well, and I got 4 kids, and I'm so happy with where my life is, you know. But I was able to get here because I didn't over leverage myself. There's been a lot of times where I put enough leverage on myself where I'm like, okay, this is starting to stress me out a little bit, so it pushed me to work, but at the same time, I didn't overdo it. A lot of guys overdo it, and, you know, not to bring names up, but you guys all know, you know, there's a lot of guys out there that buy 7 trucks at once, and you know they didn't pay cash for it. When you buy 7 trucks at once, 10 trucks at once, that you're going to experience some serious stress, because for one, the logistics of everything is just times 20, you know? And then you gotta fake it till you make it, because you literally don't know what it's going to be like to run that many trucks. And then You have to fake it until you make it, you know, and you can do it, but the chances of your failure are so much greater, you know, and you just can't give up. And some people will just have it in them to do it that way, but 90% of you guys don't have it in you to do it that way. You got to do it the more laid back way. Just grow slowly and just experience the growth naturally. Life is a marathon. It's not no sprint. Some people do the sprint and they trip and they fall and they scrape their whole face up and, you know, they catch their face on fire. You know, some people like to do it their way. They want to do the sprint thing. I'm just going to do my thing my way, you know, and you guys got to choose your own directions. So, you know, anyways, don't forget to pound that like button, pound that subscribe button as always, and I'll catch you guys on the next one with more dump truck content.